Often prayer becomes a list, and far too often that list is self-serving. And so where I realized that I can talk to God, and sure, it's a prayer, but for me it's more of a conversation. I literally in my truck on my way to work or on my way home will talk out loud to Him. Talking to God was easier than praying. Pretty much I've been raised a Adventist all my life. My father was ordained, as a pastor, working for the conference, and my mom wound up working for the conference too. They were in the literature work, and somewhere along the line there, my dad separated from working for the church. There was a thing where the church as a whole decided that they were going to stop doing formal literature work. When this change occurred in the conference, I saw it hurt my family. I saw it as the church hurt my family. It was awkward for me. I was in high school at the time. I'm a big person with loyalty, and it sat wrong with me. And so things started to change in my life. There was a lot of things that went on during those formative years for me that I saw was just outright hypocritical behavior. I was raised at a time where most people my age were raised, where it was very legalistic. You were either right or you're wrong. You're either sinning or you're not. I did not come up in a time where it was about a relationship with God. So for me, I felt like, by the time my feet hit the ground in the morning and I would walk 30 feet to brush my teeth, I had already sinned for the day. I was done. And I just figured how are we supposed to have this relationship? To me, it was just, we somehow have to live a life with no sin, and that's how we get to heaven. I just thought, what, Lord, I know there's a God, but I don't know what to do with you. I don't know how to relate to you. It's probably best that I just set you on the side. And I don't want to be like the people around me that are supposed to be helping me, and meaning I don't want to be hypocritical. So for me, I either have to do it or I can't do it. And probably in 1987, I was a junior in high school. I stopped going to church, and it wasn't until about 2003, one of the times I think back to that really opened my eyes was I picked my daughter up from school, and she was 7 or 8, and she was sitting in the back seat, and we were driving, and she was talking. She would always talk to me about her day at school, and she would always talk to me about Bible class. But I told her, I said, honey, I'm really glad that your school teaches you guys and they express God to you as they do, because it wasn't like that for me. And she said, what do you mean, Daddy? And I said, well, I don't really know how to put it, but it just seems to me that you're kind of being taught that it doesn't have to be everything about right and wrong. And she said in her little mind, she said, you mean it's just having a spiritual relationship with Jesus? And that was a huge turning point, in my head. And a few years before that, I hadn't gone to church in years, and something was telling me, you need to take your daughter to church. You need to take your daughter to church. So Carla and I went to church, and it was University Church, and we came in a little bit late. All of a sudden, the person got up to preach, and his voice was very clear to me in my head, and I looked up, and it was Randy. And the significance of that is, in this time where I had decided I don't think I want to follow through with Christianity, so to speak, I had come to Loma Linda for PT school, and I was sitting in class one day, and so we had this teacher, and it was an ethics type class, patient ethics, and he was very believable, and the teacher was Randy. And I found myself enjoying wanting to go to this class. In my head, I said, you know what, God, if you can find me a person or a pastor like that, I'll come back to church. That was in 1990, summer of 1991. And it's really interesting how God works, because my life went on and it was very different than it is. It was very deviant to what it is now. You know, for God to have heard me say that and brought me somehow to the church. And the person I asked for was actually him. I said, okay, God, I get it, you know. And so I went home and I told Terry, and I said, we're going to start going to church. Terry and I would go to church, and we would sit there, and everybody has to be the armchair quarterback, right? And so I would sit there, and after church, I'd tell Terry, man, why is that being said? Or what are they doing with that? She said, well, why don't you, get involved instead of, always telling me about it? And I said, no, they don't want me doing anything there, trust me. A couple years went by, and then Joelle got up front, and she said that they were going to start trying to further the discipleship program, and they were looking for people to be involved, and if you wanted to be involved. And I kind of started walking out, and I saw Joelle there, and I turned around and I went back, and I gave her my information, and we went home, and I walked in the house and the phone rang, and it was Joelle. And I said, okay, and I thought, wow, that was quick, they must be desperate. I would do it, So one day I came out of a little meeting that we were in, and I ran into Marvin Ponder, and he helped me understand that doing things at church didn't always have to be something you were asked to do. And it made sense, because that's how my father was. Sometimes it's that you see it needs done and you do it. And you shouldn't wait around to be asked. And I just let things kind of evolve from there. I became head elder about 7.5 years ago. My intent with being a head elder was not to draw attention to myself. It was to further what was necessary with the church and get things done. I'm like anybody else, I still have a lot of sins and stuff I work through and struggle with, but I do see that I see changes in myself. Obviously, it needs to be stronger. There's more work that needs to be done there. I would hope that the person that can answer that question the best would be Terry. Terry used to tell me, if you can't say something nice, don't say nothing at all. It's been a few years since I've heard that, so I'm going to guess that something has changed. And the person that I am at church needs to be the person that I am at home and the person I am at work. The person that is up front needs to be the same person that somebody can approach when you step off of the platform. The more authentic I am with God, the easier it is for me to be authentic with myself. And the more authentic I can be with myself, the more helpful I can hopefully be to other people. If we as a church are going to have a motto of discipleship, then it has to be more than a sermon. Be a disciple yourself, which is one that is willing to learn, as well as discipling others, which is one that is willing to teach. And I don't think that means teach from a point of, sit down here, I got something to tell you. I think that means that I believe when it comes into my practice that at work, that the best teaching I can do for my staff is to be an example of what I want done. And I feel the same thing is necessary at church, because this is not the goal. Coming here to church and sitting here and hearing a sermon, this is a part of our life that's very important, a part of our life that is necessary. But if this is all that we do, then time is just going to keep going on, and we're never going to get out of here. Our goal has to be that our personality and character emulates what God needs of us for his work to be done. Because the goal is not for me to live 80 years and once a week go to church. The goal is for me to grow my relationship with God and to help others grow theirs so that his work is done and we can go home. We can go to heaven.